Hello, beautiful people. I am so glad you're here. Welcome to Your Spiritual Guru podcast. I'm your host and spiritual guru, Erin. I've been on my own spiritual journey for the past 2 years, and it's an honor to walk beside you as you navigate through your own. This podcast is for anyone who is wanting to do inner work, get more in tune with themselves, heal past traumas, and find their inner power. If that's you, then sit tight because this is going to get deep. You ready? Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If you're listening to this when the episode comes out, it is Friday. Thank God it's Friday. I am recording this on Wednesday, January 25th, and again, I am not wearing any makeup. For those of you who are watching me on YouTube, my skin is still healing, although it is getting better. And this is really out of my comfort zone to not have makeup on when I'm recording, but I've gotten better with being okay with coming on camera and not having any makeup on, which took a really, really long time to get there. But that's a conversation for another day. I'm actually considering doing a podcast episode on, I guess how I was able to become this confident woman that you see before you today. But again, that's for another day. Today's episode, because I know some of you may still be recovering from last week's episode, this one is gonna be a little bit lighter and hopefully more positive. I honestly don't know how long this podcast episode is gonna be, so if it's a short one, I apologize, but knowing me, I can get started on the topic and just go and go and go. So who knows? But I'm just giving you a fair warning. Like if this is a short episode this week, I'm sorry. We'll pick back up next week. But nothing really. So usually when I record these podcast episodes every week, the inspiration comes from some event or something, some memory that was triggered, or conversation that I had. Nothing really significant happened this week, but I have noticed that this particular topic has been coming up a lot in my conversations recently. So I was like, what the hell? Let me do a podcast episode on it. That topic of conversation is my relationship with the higher power. Ooh, I know, right? So, up until now, okay, let me start at the beginning. If y'all have been here with me through the beginning of the podcast, or if you know me personally, you know that I've referenced this religion that I grew up in, I was raised in, and I haven't told you the name of that religion for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't want to exclude anybody. I didn't want someone listening to only see that religion and be like, oh, well, I can't relate to her because, I'm not a part of that religion, so none of this applies to me. It's not that, because everything that I'm saying, I feel like I speak on a very broad scope. So I feel like a lot of people can relate to what I'm saying. So I didn't want to shut anybody out. I didn't want to, exclude anybody. But then I also didn't want people to put me in a box, right? I didn't want them to be like, oh, this is, this box that she fits in and she's going to stay right here. Like, I wanted to be very just open and just be able to connect with a lot of people. But I think that by me sharing the religion that I was raised in, it might actually help kind of put some pieces together if you've been listening this whole time. And some of what I'm telling you might actually start to make a little bit more sense, and you can kind of see why I feel the way that I feel and why I think the way that I do and why I see the world the way that I see it. So, again, I was raised in this religion from pretty much the time that I was born up until I decided to leave this religion at 16. And that religion is Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay. Yes, I was raised one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And if you know me personally now, you know that I practice witchcraft. I'm very spiritual. I don't really agree with religion. Religion and spirituality to me are two completely different things. For me, religion puts a box around spirituality. For me, in my opinion, religion is a way to disconnect people and to discriminate and to keep people apart. Oh, I can't marry you because you're not Jewish. Oh, I can't talk to you because you're not one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, I can't, do this, that, and the third because you don't believe the way that I do. I cannot get behind that. So for me, religion and spirituality are very, very different because with spirituality, you personally define your relationship with the higher power. Now, that being said, I do believe in God. But I don't think that I necessarily believe in God the way that most people believe in God, if that makes sense. I'm going to explain what I mean by that. When I was growing up, I hated going to the Kingdom Hall. I literally, I remember making up stories that I was sick. I remember being at the Kingdom Hall and making every excuse to leave out of my seat. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom every 30 minutes. I could not stand going to the Kingdom Hall. And I don't know, I don't, hindsight, looking back, I don't know if it was just because I was young and I was a teenager and my attention span was horrible and I couldn't stand being still for more than 30 minutes. I don't know. I don't know if that was just my spirit just telling me that this is not right. This is not sitting well with me. But I think as I got older, especially when I decided to leave the religion, I took those first steps to develop my own relationship with higher power. It's hard to do that when your entire life you've been told to believe one thing. You've been told to look at things one way. I was even discouraged from seeking out any information other than the information that was provided by Jehovah's Witnesses, right? And I'm not the one to say that the Bible is not inspired of God. I don't know. What I do know is that the Bible was written by imperfect men. And it was rewritten and rewritten and rewritten and rewritten by imperfect human beings. Do I believe that there are some good lessons and some good words and stories to live by in the Bible? Absolutely. Absolutely there are. But to take something that was rewritten and rewritten and rewritten over and over and over again by imperfect human beings as gospel and just so matter-of-factly, I can't do it. Does not sit right with me. And it wasn't for lack of trying. So when I left the religion, I was 16, so I was still, living with my mom. I really didn't get out on my own until I was 18. Well, even shortly after that, when I graduated from high school and moved out of my hometown to go to college. Remember, I mentioned that a few episodes back. And in that experience, I was finding myself. I was trying to figure out who I was, what I truly believed, what I enjoyed, what made me happy, how I saw the world, all of these things. And because Jehovah's Witness was the only religion that I had any exposure to for most of my life, I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what else was out there. I didn't know what other religions felt like, you know? So, of course, you know, I went to different churches. I researched different things, and nothing ever felt right, you know, until I started practicing witchcraft, which some people may think is like a dark art and, oh, that's devil worship, or that's not really spirituality. I really don't care what anybody else thinks about my relationship with the higher power. It's mine. And that brings me to another point. I never got behind the idea that there was only one true religion. Never sat right with me, because these same people who preach that narrative that, you know, there is just this one true religion and all the other ones are wrong, are the same people who talk about a just God, a forgiving God, a loving God. And I don't see how a just, a forgiving, a loving God could say, if we're going off of what, you know, what is believed, that God made all of these people, all of these human beings, but only made one religion, only one way that you could get into heaven. It didn't matter what you did, whether you were a good person or a bad person, because let's be clear, there are still good people and still bad people who are in these religions that believe that if you believe this way, then you're going to heaven. So let's make that clear. Doesn't matter what you do, if you're good or bad, how you lived your life, if you don't believe this certain way, you're not going to heaven. I don't buy it. Just did not make sense to me. Because in my mind, I was not there when all of this happened, right? Millions and billions of years ago. I wasn't there. I've never personally met God, as far as I know. How can I, as an imperfect human being, tell you, another imperfect human being, that your relationship with God is wrong and mine is right? How can I do that? That really came to light for me when I developed my own relationship with the higher power. I'm going to use higher power a lot because, and I'll use God too, just because, you know, I know that's what a lot of people kind of relate to the most, but I'll say higher power just to, you know, give a blanket. For me, God is a feeling, a knowing that you're not alone, that everything around you is working for you, but that you also have a say. You have power. You have autonomy over your life. And if you stop for a minute and you look around and you breathe and you notice the sunlight coming through the clouds, or the butterfly that just passed you by, or the bird that decided to stand beside you just for a minute before it flew away, or the wind blowing in the trees and the sunlight reflecting off of them. If you stop for just a minute and notice, you'll see it. And that's what it's like for me. That's why, in most cases, most of the time, I am happy. I'm in a positive mood. I see the beauty around me. God is everywhere. In the littlest, smallest details. And I think not enough people really take the time to sit and notice. I think most people are focused on the wrong things, and they think that they know God and have a relationship with a higher power. But in reality, they've been programmed to believe a certain way. Which I can relate to because I was programmed to believe a certain way. And it took a long time I'm still working on it, to chip away at that programming, that brainwashing. And to be able to sit with myself and ask myself, what do you believe, Aaron? What do you feel? What do you know in your heart is right? What feels right and good for you? Because what feels right and good for me might not feel right and good for you, or the next person, or the next person. That's what makes it your personal relationship with the higher power. I'm not going to tell you that what you experience is not wrong, or is right or wrong. Just as I wouldn't want someone to tell me that my experience with God is wrong, because my experience with God is beautiful. It's beautiful. I talked to whoever it is. I don't even know. I'm just speaking into the universe, and I'm hoping it lands somewhere, right? Because the truth of the matter is, we don't know. None of us do. We don't know what happens after we die. I mean, I know scientifically what happens, but on a spiritual level, we don't know. All we can go off of is what we see with our own eyes and what we feel ourselves, right? So that's what I did. I just started doing things that felt right for me. Not hurting anybody, not shaming anybody for what they believe, and not trying to make them believe how I believe. God, that was the worst part. Trying to convince other people to believe what I believed in that religion. But no, just me, myself, silence, a lot of silence, tears, joy, laughter, and just finding myself. And by me finding myself, I found God. That sounds really cheesy and very, what's the word? I'll think of it later. But cliche, that's the word I was looking for. Sounds very cliche, but it's true. When I found myself, when I dug deeper into myself, when I found my power, is when I found God. Because remember, I mentioned this before, my theory. If we were all made in God's image, then we are all God. I'm God. You're God. We're made of the same energy. So I believe that the closer we get to ourselves, the closer we get to the higher power. That's all I got for y'all today. Until we meet again. Namaste.